The ordering department seemed filled with the smell of overheated office equipment and unspoken tension. Problems with the Chinese partners had become a running joke. They kept changing delivery terms, shifting dates without warning, even though everything had been confirmed down to the last comma in the official correspondence. Each day brought a new headache, and that's why everyone sat in silence, glued to their monitors from morning till night. Victoria, the lead international relations specialist, was no exception. She triple-checked every number, every word in the orders, fully aware that even the tiniest mistake could turn into a disaster. For her, the stakes were even higher. People already whispered behind her back, saying she only got the job because her husband was the son of the company's director, Heinrich Meyer, a man known for his bluntness and despotic nature. There was a sense of an approaching storm in the air. And then, it hit. A chilling silence settled over the department as the door slammed open and Heinrich burst in like a hurricane. His face was flushed, eyes bulging, gut sticking out. He threw a stack of documents onto Victoria's desk. Papers flew everywhere. "Vika, what the hell is this?" His voice thundered across the room. The Chinese sent the wrong components again. Who sent the request? Was it you? Victoria shrank a little as she looked up at him. Heinrich, I checked everything 3 times. The request matched the specifications exactly. Silence, he roared, cutting her off, then swept his glare across the frozen office. You can't trust anyone. Nothing. And don't even start with me about women handling things like technical specs, logistics, or, God forbid, finance. All you think about is nail polish and handbags. At that moment, his son Matteo, Victoria's husband, appeared in the doorway. He was Heinrich's right-hand man, usually working quietly in his own office, but the commotion had clearly drawn him in. His eyes landed on his pale wife. For a second, something like regret flashed in them. But then he looked away, his lips pressed into a hard, thin line, as if silently agreeing with every word his father had said. Seeing his son, Heinrich straightened up, feeding off the moment. Take a look, Matteo. Your wife. We thought she'd open new horizons for us with her international contacts, and she can't even get basic components ordered correctly. I don't need specialists like that. Matteo gave a brief nod. Victoria saw it, and it cut deeper than any insult. Her husband, as if following some internal script, raised his voice a little. I agree, Dad. Vika's smart and gorgeous, no doubt about that, but maybe it's time she focused on the home. No point sitting here all day printing documents. People must think I don't give her enough money if she's so desperate to work. Heinrich, clearly enjoying the moment, pointed a finger straight at Victoria. There you go. And now listen closely, sweetheart, you're fired. As of tomorrow, you're done. Go home and start making babies for my son. Enough. You've played office long enough. The rest of the staff, stunned by Heinrich's rage and Victoria's humiliation, hunched lower over their desks. No one dared look up, let alone say anything. Victoria's heart tightened. This wasn't just a dismissal, it was a betrayal by the very people she considered family. Her world was crumbling under the weight of injustice and contempt, but deep inside, a cold fury had already begun to rise, along with a burning need to prove her true worth. She looked at them, her arrogant father-in-law and her cold, complicit husband, and despite the crushing tension, she smiled to herself, just barely. Let them gloat. They don't realize they've just pulled out the one nail holding their whole operation together. But before we move on, let me introduce myself. My name is Luca Nebo. And I wrote this story especially for you. Drop a comment with your city and country, I'd love to know where you're reading from. At the end of the workday, Victoria went to HR. She placed her office key and employee badge on the polished counter. Oh my God, Vika, I heard everything. Come sit, whispered Anna, the veteran HR clerk, her voice full of empathy. Victoria slowly sank into the chair. I need to be officially dismissed, Anna. I've been fired, she said quietly, her voice flat. Anna rushed to gather the necessary documents. Vika, sweetheart, so that's final? Anna looked at her, concern in her eyes. Then she nodded slowly, as if confirming an old truth to herself. Arguing with Heinrich was a waste of nerves. Why do you even need this job? Your husband Mateo's doing well, he can provide everything. And Heinrich, well, you know how he is. Why not just live peacefully? Why go through all this stress? Victoria lifted her head. Her face showed sadness, but also a deep sense of loss. It's not about the money, Anna, she said. For me, work is freedom. It's dignity. It's the part of life where I'm just me, not Mateo's wife or Heinrich's daughter-in-law. Without it, I'm nobody. Just a pretty doll on someone's payroll. She took a deep breath, and something in her shifted, a spark returned to her eyes. I didn't get here by chance, Anna. I graduated top of my class in linguistics, specialized in a rare northern Chinese dialect, so rare even many Chinese haven't heard of it. Native speakers think I'm one of them until they see me. She gave a small laugh, remembering some amusing incident from her student years. For Mateo, for this job, for his father, I even took courses in international logistics and foreign trade certification. So their orders wouldn't get mixed up, so their partners could actually understand the specs. And now they've wiped their feet on me, calling it just printing papers. She spat out the last words with such bitter intensity that Anna flinched. The old HR woman listened closely, quietly amazed at how this delicate young woman had grown into such a professional, and with that came a deep, respectful admiration. She handed Victoria the paperwork. I hate to see you go, Vika, but I guess that's just how life works out sometimes. Victoria stepped out of the office. Mateo was waiting, as always, by the black SUV in the parking lot. The ride home passed in silence, interrupted only by the hum of city traffic. She waited for her husband to say something, to apologize for his father, for everything that had happened. But he said nothing. His silence spoke volumes, as if nothing out of the ordinary had occurred, as if everything had simply fallen into place. In that silence lay his unshakable belief in being right, his complete inability to understand that this wasn't just a job for her, it was part of who she was. The next day, Victoria slept in. Her phone was quiet. No calls, no messages. A strange, almost tangible calm settled over her. It was silence she wasn't used to, but it felt freeing. Until noon, when it was abruptly broken by the sharp buzz of a message. She glanced at her phone. A text from a former colleague. Panic practically screamed from the screen. The Chinese are arriving tomorrow for negotiations. We urgently need a translator. Who knows what to do? Victoria read it, then slowly typed her reply with cold satisfaction. Direct all questions to your boss. On the third morning, silence wrapped around her again. Victoria sat in the kitchen with a hot cup of coffee, her eyes following the play of sunlight on the wall. For the first time in a long while, she felt the sharp stillness of being completely alone. But the peace didn't last. Her phone, resting on the table, suddenly buzzed and chimed. Then one message after another started flooding the old office chat. Victoria read them silently, disjointed phrases soaked in panic. Total disaster. They're furious. Everything's on fire. The deal's falling apart. There was no clear picture, but it was obvious something terrible was happening at the office. She didn't reply. Instead, she let herself imagine the chaos, the confusion, the helplessness without her there to guide the talks with the Chinese delegation. Then Mateo called. She hesitated, then picked up. His voice was nothing like its usual calm. It was cracked with fear and barely held together. He sounded breathless, as if he'd been running. Vika, you have to come. Now. Mateo's voice was trembling. The Chinese are here, and this new guy, the translator, he's useless, doesn't understand a word of their dialect. Dad's losing it. He's yelling, threatening to fire everyone. It's a disaster, Vika. If we blow this deal, the company's finished. You're our only hope. Dad says he'll agree to anything, just please fix this. Victoria listened. Her face gave nothing away, but inside, something twisted. Mateo's panic, his admission that she was irreplaceable, it cut deeper than revenge. She closed her eyes, the humiliation of 2 days ago still fresh in her mind, her words about dignity echoing back. This was her moment. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. Any terms, huh? All right then, she said with a smile. First, my fee for today will be 5 times my monthly salary, and I want that amount in my account within the hour before I arrive. Second, I take no orders. I work as an independent international consultant on Eastern markets and cross-cultural communication. I report directly to the CEO. And he personally, in front of the delegation and everyone else, will introduce me as the only person capable of saving this deal. There was a pause on the other end. Then a crash. Heinrich had clearly grabbed the phone. You've lost your damn mind. 5 salaries for 1 day? You arrogant little expert. I'll handle it myself with sign language if I have to. I'd rather have the devil negotiate in Chinese than give in to you, he roared. His voice cracked with fury before the line went dead. Victoria calmly placed the phone back on the table, feeling a cool, deep satisfaction settle over her. She finished her coffee slowly, savoring each sip, and her calm. Not even 30 minutes had passed when the phone buzzed again. Mateo's number. This time, it was Heinrich's voice on the line, low, broken. Victoria, fine. Have it your way? Whatever you want, just hurry. The Chinese are already getting ready to leave. Stop them. I'll be there in an hour, Victoria said flatly and hung up. Exactly 1 hour later, Victoria walked into the company office, now in total chaos. Her arrival felt like a queen entering a battlefield. Dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, her hair immaculately styled, she was flawless. As panicked employees rushed down the halls, a ripple of whispers followed her, clearing a path. She stepped into the conference room, and every head turned toward her. She scanned the room. The tension was almost physical. In the corner, the pale, scrawny temporary interpreter looked pitiful, mumbling something in Chinese under his breath, only heightening the contrast. Heinrich, his face flushed with rage, turned and exhaled in visible relief when he saw her. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, forcing the words out. His voice wavered as he glanced at Victoria. Allow me to introduce our invaluable expert in Eastern markets and cross-cultural communication, the only person capable of bringing these negotiations to a successful close. Victoria walked to the table. The Chinese partners stared at her with puzzled expressions. She smiled, then began to speak, and the room filled with the clear, melodic sound of Northern Chinese dialect. Her voice was confident, her words precise, her intonation flawless. She wasn't just translating, she was leading the talks, clarifying points, finding compromises, smoothly resolving the issues that had been stalling the deal. The temporary interpreter sat silently, stunned, fully aware of how small he looked next to her skill. The Chinese businessmen's faces softened, understanding appeared, then smiles. The deal, hanging by a thread just minutes ago, now moved swiftly toward a successful conclusion. Heinrich stared at Victoria, unable to look away. Amazement flickered in his eyes. Mateo, watching from the sidelines, saw his wife in a completely new light, no longer as a pretty ornament, but as a powerful, irreplaceable woman. A confused admiration flashed across his face. Several hours later, the contract was signed. The Chinese delegation stood up, smiling as they shook Victoria's hand, praising her professionalism and thanking her for saving the deal. The company had been saved. Victoria stood among them, feeling her crushed dignity rising again, standing tall. She hadn't won by yelling, she'd won with mastery. This was real freedom, earned through talent. After the delegation left, leaving behind the faint scent of Eastern incense, Mateo asked Victoria to join him in Heinrich's office. She was emotionally drained but strangely at peace as she entered. The signed contract, her victory, lay on the desk, securing a multimillion-dollar agreement. Only Heinrich and Mateo were there. Both looked worn out, but their eyes showed undeniable relief. Mateo was the first to break the silence. His voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Vika, you were incredible," he said, looking at her with a new, unsettled gaze. "I didn't know, I never thought you understood all this so deeply. The dialects, the specifics. I thought you just handled, basic correspondence." He waved awkwardly, searching for words, his face flushing. His father stepped closer, his usually imposing figure seeming a little smaller. He stopped in front of Victoria, avoiding her eyes. His voice had none of its usual arrogance, only fatigue, which quickly shifted back to his familiar sternness. "All right, I'll admit it. You did an outstanding job," Heinrich began. "It's a big deal, a very big deal. The money you asked for, outrageous, honestly. But I'll admit, those Chinese guys were smiling and nodding like you handed them the sun. I guess it was worth it." He snorted, as if annoyed by his own admission. "Mateo and I used to think this stuff was just routine, write a few emails, get a translator, that's it. But now we get it, without someone who truly knows the language, and a rare dialect at that, our whole operation would have collapsed." Victoria said nothing, watching him calmly, waiting. She didn't need apologies or grand gestures, she just needed this acknowledgement. And it came, in his own clumsy way. As for the conditions, Heinrich continued, his tone firm again as he gave her a once-over, "The money's in your account, I checked myself. As of today, consider yourself reinstated. But..." He paused dramatically, clearly preparing to add his own condition. "Be a dear and at least think about grandchildren. Mateo and I agreed, if you decide to go for it, we'll lighten your workload. You could work from home part-time. These Chinese guys, there's something else." There was a faint spark of sly humor in his voice. Victoria looked down at Heinrich's outstretched hand, then up at his face, where, behind the usual domineering look, she saw something genuine. A belated, but honest recognition of her worth. She slowly raised her hand and gave him a firm handshake. But it wasn't just forgiveness, it was something deeper. A new understanding. A rebuilt respect. Mateo stepped toward her, his face glowing with relief. "You're a real hero, Vika," he said, then awkwardly reached out and hugged her. She looked at both men, feeling the quiet thrill of victory. Her freedom was no longer some distant ideal, it was real. She had proven her worth, and they had finally seen it. A few days later, Victoria returned to the office, but everything felt different. She wasn't just another employee anymore. She walked in as an expert, someone whose value had been recognized by the director himself. Anna from HR lit up the moment she saw her. "Vika, I'm so happy to see you. Justice finally won." She smiled warmly, her eyes full of genuine kindness. "You should have seen the mess around here. The whole company was flipped upside down." When Victoria stepped into her department, she was greeted with a round of applause. "Vika, you have no idea what it was like here," one of the co-workers laughed nervously. "We were about to be eaten alive without you. We're so glad you're back. When the boss realized you were the only one who spoke Northern Chinese, he nearly lost it. I thought I was going to go gray right then, and they're trying to explain that no one else could do it. Seriously, you saved us. Please, never leave us again." Victoria listened, smiling. She saw their relief, their respect. It wasn't the big words or public apologies from Heinrich that mattered. It was this, her work, her value, the fact that she came back on her own terms. That was the real victory. She was no longer just Mateo's wife or a pretty face. She was a vital professional, needed and finally appreciated. And that was everything. Now tell me, did you enjoy the story? Make sure to subscribe to our channel. A new story drops